Welcome to the Four Cardinal Points official channel. Four Cardinal Points organization is a multifaceted research and analysis center based in Istanbul, Turkey. Today I'm glad to introduce you to our new playlist called Civilizational Studies as part of our cultural studies playlist. And we're glad to introduce you to the concept of manifest destiny, or United States expansionism, and Russian expansionism. We're going to compare them and see what the characteristics are for both types of civilizational expansionism, and also what the key similarities and differences are. So without further to say, I invite you to reflect on two great arcs of continental expansion in the modern era. The United States westward surge under the banner of manifest destiny, and the Russian Empire's march across Asia. Both projects unfolded over roughly the same centuries, approximately. Both created vast multi-ethnic polities that would shape global politics. Yet they were propelled by different ideas, different methods, and different visions of what expansion meant for the nation. So let us begin with the United States. The term manifest destiny, coined in the 1840s by journalist John L. O'Sullivan, gave a name to what many United States citizens already felt: that the Republic was divinely appointed to expand across the North American continent. This was not merely territorial ambition. It was framed as a moral mission. Expansion, Americans told themselves, would spread liberty, Republican government, and Protestant Christian values from sea to shining sea. It was a narrative infused with providential certainty that westward growth was not just possible, but inevitable and righteous. The Russian case did not crystallize in a single slogan, but its ideological underpinnings were no less potent. Tsarist expansion across Siberia, Central Asia, and the Caucasus rested on a mix of autocratic statecraft, Orthodox Christian universalism, and imperial pragmatism. The Russian court and its intellectuals did not invoke the language of republican liberty, but rather of state necessity and civilizing mission, of bringing the Orthodox faith, Russian law, and the Tsar's authority to the far reaches of Eurasia, as far as Vladivostok. The directions of these expansions were set by geography. The United States moved westward across the Appalachians, through the Mississippi Basin, to the Pacific coast. For the young republic, the Pacific represented both a symbolic and physical endpoint. The western edge of the continent, and a gateway to the lucrative trade of the Pacific Rim, whereas Russia, by contrast, pushed eastwards across the Urals into Siberia, reaching the Pacific coast by approximately the 17th century, and later southward into Central Asia and the Caucasus. There was no natural stopping point. The empire expanded until it met other great powers, such as the Ottoman, the Persian, and the Qing Chinese dynasty, or the limits of its logistical reach. So economics played a critical role in both cases. In the United States, the drive for fertile farmland, mineral wealth, and access to Pacific ports were paramount. The gold rush of 1849, the Homestead Act, and the construction of the transcontinental railroads all illustrate how economic opportunity and territorial ambition intertwined. In Russia, the early impetus was furs, soft gold, which financed the trek across Siberia. Later, the empire sought timber, minerals, oil in the Caucasus, and agricultural lands in Central Asia. In both contexts, the state encouraged settlement, but in Russia, the settlers often followed in the wake of military outposts, while in the US, civilian migration frequently preceded formal incorporation. The means of expansion also diverged in notable ways. The United States annexed territories by purchase, as with Louisiana from France and Alaska from Russia, by war, as with Mexico in 1848, and by treaty, as with Britain in Oregon. But the engine of this expansion was settler colonialism. Waves of farmers, miners, and traders moving into indigenous lands, backed by federal military power when resistance arose. Russia, on its side, relied more on military conquest as the spearhead of empire. Cossack hosts, acting as both soldiers and settlers, built forts, subdued resistance, and secured frontiers. Conquered peoples were often brought into a tributary relationship, paying yasak in furs or taxes in kind, and gradually subjected to Russification policies. The pattern was not of extermination on the North American model, but of incorporation under imperial hierarchy, often leaving local elites in place under the Tsar's sovereignty. The human cost for indigenous and local peoples was profound in both cases. In the United States, Native American nations were systematically displaced, their treaties broken, their lands seized. Programs of assimilation, such as boarding schools and bans on native languages, sought to erase indigenous identities. In Russia, the impact varied. Siberian tribes suffered population collapse from disease and loss of subsistent lands. Central Asian societies faced forced settlement, taxation, and cultural suppression. Yet, in some regions, particularly the Caucasus and Central Asia, local aristocracies were co-opted and granted limited autonomy within the empire's structure. In both nations, expansion became central to national identity. In the United States, the frontier was mythologized as the proving ground of democracy and rugged individualism. Frederick Jackson Turner's famous frontier thesis made it a pillar of United States historical self-understanding. In Russia, expansion fostered a self-image as a Eurasian power, neither wholly European nor wholly Asian, but a vast civilizing force uniting two continents. The Cossack rider and the Siberian explorer became as iconic in Russian lore as the pioneer and cowboy in United States mythology. The trajectories of this expansion also differed in their conclusions. For the United States, the continental frontier officially closed in 1890, as declared by the United States Census Bureau. From then on, expansion turned outward to Hawaii, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Guam. The Russian frontier never truly closed. Even after reaching the Pacific, the empire absorbed new lands in the Caucasus, Central Asia, and the Far East. This territorial growth persisted into the Soviet period, reshaping the map of Eurasia well into the 20th century. It is tempting to see these two stories as parallel. Vast land empires fulfilling their destinies across the breadth of continents, but the differences matter. The United States version rested on a republican and individualist narrative, though in practice it produced profound inequalities and dispossessions. The Russian version was unapologetically imperial and centralized. Its justifications rooted in autocracy and orthodoxy. The United States framed its project as the spread of freedom, whereas in the case of Russia, its project was the extension of civilization under the Tsar. And yet, beneath these ideological veneers lay shared realities. Expansion as a means of securing resources in both cases, as a strategy for geopolitical advantage, as a way of forging a national myth. In both cases, the frontier was as much a cultural idea as a geographic fact, a canvas onto which each society projected its ideals, fears, and ambitions. In closing, I suggest that by studying these two expansions together, we gain not only a clearer picture of the 19th century world, but also of the enduring patterns of continental empires. The languages of destiny and civilization may differ, but the dynamics, economic opportunity, merit to military force, ideological justification, cloaking strategic necessity, and the transformation of diverse peoples into subjects of a single political order remain strikingly familiar. So this has been all for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting and according to your appeals. Please do like this video. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep on receiving notifications from us, and have a fantastic day.